What's going on, everyone? This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. In this video today, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at near-term price action, leaning into the technicals, focusing on the technicals, and trying to see whether or not we're going to be breaking down for another leg down to new lows, or perhaps if we're about to see a breakout. We're going to answer the question specifically, where is the volume? And if you like this content, I ask you please go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe to the channel for more, and of course, looking forward to adding to the discussion below. Let's start off with the near-term technicals. I'm going to come off the 8-hour time frame right now and jump down to the 2-hour time frame. I want to point out a couple of different significant events that are happening right now. The first one is very easy for everyone to discern, and that Bitcoin is currently trading within a range. Range-bound market, waiting for a breakout or a breakdown. No one knows what's going to happen next. There are a lot of people who believe that it's most likely that Bitcoin at this point sees another leg down, potentially after testing, taking out the previous all-time, let's call it yearly low, and then finding some type of bottom where actually if this was occurring, I do believe we would see a lot of buyers who right now are waiting for some more information, that they would feel more comfortable with Bitcoin taking out this low, only because this is very similar to how the December 2018 bottom occurred. And I think a lot of traders would actually be looking, if Bitcoin did test and or take out the lows, to go ahead and deploy some of the capital they have on the sidelines. Now, we don't know whether or not that's going to happen. We do know a couple of things. We know, first of all, that last week, as Bitcoin is trading within this range, it was able to find support over here at 19,730, one time, two time, and then again 3 times. It's pretty significant that it's this level right here that Bitcoin has currently found support. And I say significant because that happens to also be the previous cycle all-time high. Now, we all know that Bitcoin pierced below that previous cycle all-time high, and there was quite a significant amount of capitulation and also on high volume. And then since then, we've seen Bitcoin not able to hold below that previous cycle all-time low and come back up into this current channel that it's consolidating within. What happens next? That has to be the question. And I want to go ahead and just point out a couple of things to you. First, let me zoom out and let me put in just a really important area. It's the next area of resistance. I'm just going to draw this trend line over here, and I want you to look horizontally where price during the Luna collapse wound up capitulating to. Interesting, we have seen 2 capitulations take place over the last month. First, over here, the Luna capitulation, and then over here we had over the weekend on that light volume. It might be referred to as the 3 arrows capitulation contagion risk, where we saw things like Celsius get involved, potentially BlockFi, and we also know that there was a large Canadian pension fund that had to sell a lot of Bitcoin. Now, I look at, as a Bitcoiner, these type of events, I don't look at it as necessarily selling. I look at it as forced selling by weak hands, and for every seller, there was a buyer. That Bitcoin has moved into much stronger hands over here. Nevertheless, that's just a bit of a side note. I want to keep going. I just wanted you to be aware of that resistance. That's the first resistance above us. And I was talking about horizontally, you could look at the spike down of Luna coming in around 25,500. And then you have heavier resistance right where my mouse is, right where the horizontal line is over here, right around just above $28,000. That's an area of resistance. I think if price were to come up into that resistance, and what we would need to see to have any type of possibility of that happening is obviously a breakout of this current channel that price is within. But if price breaks out to the upside, I mean, we talked about the downside risk, and we have a very clear level that needs to come into play in order for us to see a look at and a test of last week's low at 17,500. There's not anyone that I know that would be surprised if that low was taken out and a lower low was made. I do think that a lot of buyers would come into that if that did occur and we saw a price bouncing out of that. But we also have to look at the upside, and we have seen a couple of things occur. The first thing that we saw occur is that the sellers right over here were taking profit, right? And when I say sellers, the smart money, right? They were establishing new positions during this consolidation after the lunar eclipse in this area over here, right? That's where the sellers were establishing their positions. And then on the breakdown, they were looking to take profits on that first impulse up. Most of them are not in a rush to deploy new capital to the short side. Most of them are waiting for a much more advantageous, let's say, development, and that would be a move up and a test of this resistance in this area, whether you're looking at that trend line resistance or whether you're looking at that horizontal resistance from that Luna spike low. It comes in this area around $25,000, $26,000, depending on if we broke out, how soon we would get there. And that's an area to watch. It's a very important area because right here is, again, where smart money would be looking to manage their risk. They have a clear area of resistance where they know that they're wrong if price trades above, and they have ample opportunity to not only get that trade initiated, that if they're able to break down through this current supply, then go ahead and push that trade. So that's where the smart money, in my opinion, would be looking to establish positions. The risk to reward over here, could you see right now in the past couple of days, some traders, or the last 24 hours, some traders establishing shorts, knowing they could manage their risk right over here? Absolutely. Potentially, you have seen some people trying to play the range, and that works over here on the bottom portion as well as the top portion. Buyers over here are able to manage their risk real well. Sellers over here are able to manage their risk real well. And we are in a range. Now, depending on what side of that range you're taking, when you established your position, either which way, until we break out of this range, there's no clear direction. I could look at this I'm on the 2-hour time frame over here. You could see, and I'm trying to just go in and look at this from a micro view. You could see that we are currently holding this line as support once and support 2 times. So I've had to pick during this battle that we're experiencing right now between buyers and sellers. I would give a slight advantage to the buyers, but that could be nullified very quickly if price just breaks down a little bit further. And then you would see sellers all of a sudden in control, and in control only to the bottom end of this range, the area of support. We need to break out one way or the other, either to the upside or the downside. And it's really a guessing game at this point, which way that occurs. There are some people who are saying, well, since we don't have any volume, at this point, I'm leaning towards price actually breaking down to the downside. I just want to help you out by just giving you some perspective. If we zoom out, I could take off these scribbles. If we zoom out, I'll come on the daily to show you this. And we just go back to this area last summer, actually. 1 year ago, we were in a similar situation. Price around $30,000, was seeing whether or not it was going to be able to find a low or not. And we did see actually price put on a 130% move to the upside, making new all-time highs. That was coming off of a 55% drawdown. It is entirely different this time, in so much as this time price is currently undergoing a 75% drawdown, and it's undergoing a 75% drawdown in a macro landscape where the Federal Reserve and central banks around the world are looking to tighten monetary policy. So it is not the same, but I want to talk about this in relation to volume. And what I want you to notice is that from this move, again, coming off a 55% drawdown, this is for sure a mini bear market. you saw price able to go ahead, find a low, and move up 130%. And it did that with no volume, or I should say low volume, the whole move up. And it's a to come off 75% and not to have de-risk any of the way down is a really long time. To be on the wrong side of a trade, 130% is almost twice as bad to be on the wrong side of a trade for that long of a time. And you could see volume was a lot lower than it was in the previous 6 months or the previous year. And you could see not only that, I'm just going to go ahead, you could see that volume was lower than it is right now. You could see during this period, volume was low. And I just caution that if you're waiting for volume to return in order to go ahead and help get some directional bias, it might actually prove a handicap in this situation as it has in the past. And you could also look at some other situations you could look at with me, what occurred. Let's take a look at what occurred right here. And this is not a bottom. This is obviously a situation during March 2022. It was an anomaly, and you're looking at what is a V-shaped recovery. I don't think that we're going to experience any type of V-shaped recovery right now, but I don't think the price action in the weeks ahead is going to be boring. I think it's actually going to be quite volatile, potentially to the upside and downside. I want everyone to just be aware, when you saw price bottoming in March 2020, you saw actually volume come off. Look at the volume come off, and price jumped up, from the bottom into where volume started returning 85%. Again, that's a very long time to be on the wrong side of a trade, and it's something to think about, but I much prefer looking at what occurred in this area over here. This is the last bottom, looking at December 2018, and then the recovery that took place in the early beginning of 2019. And what I want to focus in on is, first of all, the bottom was anything but boring. Whether or not you had this first initial 25% up move, which is currently what we're seeing right now. And we talked about a lot of people looking for that next leg down before being comfortable to go ahead and deploy some of that capital they have waiting on the sidelines. And I think it's because of this situation right over here that many people are looking for that similar behavior to play out. So that's why we have a certain amount of market participants right now looking forward to seeing another low put in and expecting it. And then I want to just go a little bit further out and just show you that this was anything but boring with a 25% up move. And then you saw a 25% down move, followed by a 30% up move. And it didn't stop. You then had another 20% down move, and then another 26% up move. But I want to talk about, I'm just trying to show the volatility that takes place when a bottom can be established, and it's not boring and it's not sideways. We'll talk about sideways price action in 1 second and when that should occur, or maybe we'll save that for tomorrow. But what I want to show you is volume. That's really what I wanted to talk about in this particular session. And then you could see during the bear market, this is the meat of the bear market in 2018. Volume was very low, right? Now, in the period prior, it was obviously a little bit higher until people realized that we were in that bear market, and then you saw that volume dropping down, and then you had that capitulation event, and then volume was a little bit greater than it was in this area at the heart of the bear market, but it was still very low. And if you were waiting for volume to return to the market, you could see over here in the beginning of April, volume returned to the market. Price was currently over 50% off the low before you saw that volume returned. And would that have been enough to get you to think that volume had really returned or not, because it came off again right afterwards? It really wasn't until May that volume started coming in and staying in. At that point, you're looking at price being roughly 130% off the low, and you get to participate just with this move over here, another 40%. All I'm trying to do is just give you deeper perspective so that we're able to have the most information as possible and not live in this one-sided bubble where you're only assessing one potential outcome. No one knows what happens next. We could only use the skills that we have to determine as best we could what has happened in the past, what is happening now, and what might potentially be happening from here. We're currently stuck in a range. I would give it a slight bullish bias, being that the sellers were unable to hold price below the previous cycle all-time high, and that since then, that exact same level has been established as support. And although we're just consolidating, running sideways, and it could break either way, it could break to the upside, and it could break to the downside, I would not be deterministic one way or another which is going to happen. If you have any thoughts, please share them below. I look forward to sharing more with you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I'll talk to you later.